that they have to accept police culture, which means becoming blue rather than anything else. Many African American police officers have a certain fear when they join the police force. They actually can become more violent than their white counterparts because they have to prove that they are more allegiant to a police culture that is overwhelmingly anti-black, more so than African Americans. In other words, how they self-identify has to be blue, and that requires a relinquishing of their own identity, unfortunately. So that's one problem. The other problem we have to accept is simply police culture in the notion that policing means capturing criminals, and to be a criminal means to be black. In other words, we live in a country at this point that when we talk about criminality, most people instinctively think of black Americans. But we also have to remember the messages that law enforcement administrators are sending to the American public and to their police officers. If you recall, I believe it was one of the directors said that the training with respect to multiculturalism, that is working and interacting with various people of different races, is optional training within the police departments. This this sends a message that respect for the lives of racial minorities is optional. It is not a top priority. And so police officers, despite the data that indicates that black Americans, Hispanic Americans, and other people of color are disproportionately targeted by police violence undeservedly, multicultural training, as I understood it, is optional. If you recall, there was very little talk about training designed to combat systemic racism. There was very little discussion about efforts to reduce, identify, isolate the alarming number of police officers or white supremacists serving in police departments, despite the fact that the federal agencies and numerous journalists and researchers are talking about this very real threat. So yes, it is the responsibility of many of our law enforcement leaders. It goes back, as the former police chief said, it goes back to supervisory responsibility. It goes back to cultures. But more importantly, it is a moral and ethical issue and a lack of accountability. We simply have to monitor what these police officers are doing, because whenever they have this discretion to act unmonitored, whenever they have the discretion to do what they want to do without any monitoring whatsoever when it comes to the use of force, we can see anti-black bias, unfortunately. And that is the problem. I hope if I didn't answer your question, I'll be happy to expand, but I want to thank you very much for your question.
No, thank you. And Mr. Chairman, if you would indulge me for one more question, I just wanted to ask Chief Gruber,